Caged and forgotten, the alien woman thought it was over, until a human came. Years, or was it decades, had blurred together in the cold, metallic silence of her cell. The walls around her were sleek, polished metal, glowing faintly with faint blue lines that marked the containment field. She had tried to count the lines once, hoping it might keep her mind occupied, but soon she had given up. Nothing changed here, and nothing ever would. She rose slowly, her limbs stiff from long hours of inactivity. Her species, the Xylan, were naturally agile and strong, but even the strongest body could weaken under the weight of endless confinement. Liara walked to the edge of the cell, placing her hand on the transparent energy barrier. She had tried everything to break it, pushing, twisting, focusing her electromagnetic abilities, but the field remained unyielding, an invisible wall that mocked her. Liara stared out into the dark corridor beyond her cage. It stretched endlessly, illuminated by intermittent panels of harsh white light. Guards rarely passed through here anymore. Perhaps they had forgotten her. Or maybe the corporation that had captured her simply decided she was no longer useful. Either way, she was alone, left to fade into memory. She sat down heavily on the cold floor. Her mind wandered to thoughts of home. The Xylan had once lived on a beautiful world, full of vast forests of shimmering crystal trees and oceans that glowed under twin suns. But the corporation's fleet had arrived, their ships blotting out the sky, tearing her world apart in search of energy sources her people had naturally harvested for centuries. Liara had fought back, but she was only one against countless invaders. She remembered the sound of her people's voices, the warmth of their touch, and then the sudden silence. Years of silence, years of confinement, years of being caged and forgotten. Her fingers grazed the control panel outside her cell, where she had once tried to send a signal, hoping that someone, anyone, might hear her plea. Nothing ever worked. Her messages had gone unanswered, buried in the corporation's layers of security. She had begun to accept that no one would come, that the universe had moved on without her. A flicker of movement caught her eye. She stiffened. For a moment she thought she imagined it. Then another flicker, tiny, almost imperceptible on the prison's communication screen. It was a human signal, faint and hesitant. Liara leaned closer, her heart quickening. At first, she did not believe it. Humans rarely came to this sector. Most stayed far away from the outer rim, where the corporation's secret operations kept them from noticing anything unusual. Yet there it was, a small, almost invisible pulse of energy that suggested someone had accessed the communications grid. She pressed her hand against the panel, sending a quiet signal back, a single pulse meant to say, "I am here." There was no response at first. Then a new pulse returned, slightly stronger this time. Liara felt a spark of hope, fragile but undeniable. A human was here. A human wanted to reach her. Liara had almost forgotten what it felt like to hope. Hours passed slowly, marked only by the faint hum of the energy field and the rhythmic pulse of the signal. Liara used the time to prepare herself. She studied the layout of her cell again, mapping the patterns of the guards, patrols she had memorized long ago. She tried to recall every detail of the security system, every weak point in the walls, every place she might escape if the opportunity came. Her mind was sharp, despite the years of isolation. She had not let herself go entirely. The Xylan were survivors, and survival meant patience, even in the face of despair. Finally, a shadow appeared outside her cell. Liara tensed, her body coiling like a spring. The figure was human, a tall figure in a standard jumpsuit, helmet under one arm. His eyes scanned the corridor quickly, alert but not hostile. He moved with careful precision, avoiding cameras and patrol robots. Liara's pulse quickened. This was it, the moment she had been waiting for. The human reached the control panel outside her cell. He paused, glancing around, then touched the surface with a small device. The panel beeped softly and the energy barrier flickered. Liara felt a thrill run through her body. She could almost taste freedom. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. The human looked at her, removing his helmet. His hair was dark and his eyes held a mixture of caution and determination. "My name is Elias Trent," he said quietly. "I'm here to get you out." Liara's eyes widened. She had not expected words like that. Humans rarely offered help without expecting something in return. "Why?" she asked. Elias hesitated, glancing down the corridor as if checking for hidden dangers. "Because what they're doing here, it's wrong. You don't belong in a cage." Liara studied him carefully. He seemed genuine, unlike the corporate guards she had known, whose loyalty was to profit and power. There was something about him, a spark of human courage that she had almost forgotten existed. The energy field around her cell flickered again. Elias gestured for her to step back. She complied, keeping her eyes on him. With a final adjustment, the field dissipated entirely and the panel beeped. The cage was open. Liara stepped forward cautiously, her muscles stiff from years of confinement. Freedom was exhilarating and terrifying. She had spent so long imagining this moment that it almost didn't feel real. Elias extended a hand. "Come on," he said. "We don't have much time." Liara hesitated only a moment before taking it. His grip was firm but not rough. She felt the warmth of human touch, a simple connection she had longed for. Together they moved down the corridor, silent but alert. The prison was quiet, almost unnaturally so. Security drones hovered in the distance, their red sensors scanning the halls. Elias moved with precision, leading her through side corridors and maintenance shafts. Liara followed, amazed at how quickly he understood the layout. He had clearly done his research. As they moved, Liara's mind raced. She could feel the faint energy fields of the prison, pulsing in rhythm with her own electromagnetic abilities. She realized that together, she and Elias could manipulate the environment, disable sensors, and create openings. She had never thought of humans as allies in such a way before. "Can you help me get the others?" she asked cautiously. Elias glanced at her. "Others?" Liara nodded. "I'm not the only one they've taken. There are more scattered across this sector." "They're experimenting on them," Elias frowned. "Then we'll have to be careful. If they find out you're alive, if they find out we're here." He didn't need to finish the sentence. Liara understood perfectly. The corporation would not hesitate to eliminate any witnesses. She had seen it with her own eyes. They moved through the shadows, side by side, an unlikely team forged by circumstance. Every step brought them closer to freedom and deeper into danger. Liara felt her heart pounding, a mix of fear and exhilaration. She had been caged and forgotten for too long, but now, with a human by her side, she felt the spark of hope reignite. Elias stopped suddenly, holding up a hand. Ahead, a security door blocked their path. He examined the panel, tapping a sequence into his device. Liara watched, fascinated. The door beeped and hissed, then slid open slowly. "Your turn," Elias said, glancing at her. Liara nodded, concentrating. She focused her energy, feeling the familiar hum of her electromagnetic power. The door's sensors flickered, then shut down completely. She had done it. Together they were stronger than the prison. Elias smiled briefly. "Not bad," he said. Liara allowed herself a small smile in return. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of purpose beyond survival. She had been caged, forgotten, and abandoned, but that was about to change. They moved on, deeper into the labyrinth of the prison, knowing that the real challenge was only beginning. The corridors twisted and turned, each one potentially more dangerous than the last. But Liara felt a strange calm. With a human willing to fight beside her, perhaps they could turn the tables on those who had kept her captive for so long. As they rounded a corner, a flicker of movement caught Liara's eye. She froze, sensing the faint pulse of another presence. Elias noticed too, his hand resting on the small blaster at his side. "Stay close," he whispered. Liara nodded. Her heart raced, but she did not panic. The Xylan were survivors. Humans were clever. And together, perhaps they could escape this prison and maybe even fight back. For the first time in her life since captivity, Liara felt a thrill of hope. She was no longer alone. She was no longer forgotten. And as the dark corridors stretched ahead, filled with unknown dangers, she knew that freedom was within reach, if only they could survive the next steps. The adventure had begun. The corridor was silent except for the faint hum of the prison's energy systems. Liara followed closely behind Elias, her senses alert. Every shadow, every flicker of light could hide danger. She had spent years in isolation, and her instincts for survival were sharper than ever. Elias moved quickly but cautiously, his eyes scanning for motion. He gestured for Liara to stay low as they passed beneath a hovering drone. The machine scanned the hallway with a red sensor beam, its movements precise and mechanical. Liara's heart pounded as she watched, her hands trembling slightly. "Focus on me," Elias whispered. "I'll guide you, don't let it see you." Liara nodded, drawing in a deep breath. She concentrated, feeling the subtle vibrations of the drone through the metal floor. Using her Xylan abilities, she extended a tiny pulse of electromagnetic energy toward the machine. It shivered briefly, a soft click echoing as its sensors flickered. The drone paused, recalibrated, and then moved on, oblivious to their presence. "Good," Elias said quietly. "You're a natural at this." Liara allowed herself a small smile, though her nerves remained taut. "I've had practice," she murmured. They moved down the corridor, turning into a side hallway that Elias had noted on his digital map. The walls here were less polished, showing years of wear. Piping ran along the ceiling, and ventilation shafts rattled with the hum of air circulation. This section of the prison seemed forgotten, rarely patrolled. "Almost there," Elias said. "We need to reach the docking bay." "My ship is small, but it can get us out of here if we avoid the patrols." Liara glanced at him, curiosity mixed with caution. "Your ship, you're alone," he nodded. "Mostly, I usually work alone on missions like this. It's easier to avoid attention." His gaze softened. "I didn't expect to find anyone here alive, but when I did, I couldn't just leave you." Liara studied him carefully. Humans often had hidden motives, but Elia's sincerity was clear. She felt a strange mix of relief and caution. Trust was dangerous, but she had learned over the years that she couldn't survive alone forever. As they progressed, the corridors became more complex, twisting in a series of loops and junctions. Liara's knowledge of the prison's energy fields proved useful. She guided Elias through paths where the automated defenses were weakest, explaining which doors could be bypassed with careful timing. "Most humans wouldn't understand this," she said quietly. Elias shrugged. "Maybe not, but I know when to listen." Their brief exchange was interrupted by a sudden alarm. Red lights flashed along the walls, and a loud siren echoed through the corridors. Liara froze, instinctively shielding her head while Elias crouched low, pressing against the wall. "Patrols!" Elias hissed. "We need to move, now!" Liara's pulse raced as the sound of footsteps approached. She reached out with her powers, sending a controlled pulse to a nearby security door. The door clicked and swung open just as a patrol rounded the corner, narrowly missing them. They slipped inside, panting slightly, and Liara allowed herself a glance at Elias. "You're reckless," she said, half scolding, half impressed. Elias grinned briefly. "And you're cautious, perfect balance." The hallway opened into a larger chamber filled with maintenance equipment and storage crates. Elias led her to a small ladder at the far end. "This shaft leads to the docking bay. It's a tight fit, but it's our best shot." Liara climbed after him, moving silently. The narrow shaft was dark, and the air smelled faintly of metal and oil. She could feel her heart racing, adrenaline sharpening her senses. Every step mattered. One mistake, one noise, and the corporation's forces would find them. As they climbed, Liara's mind wandered. The thought of leaving this prison, of finally escaping, seemed almost impossible after so many years. Yet here she was, moving through the shadows with a human willing to risk everything to help her. They reached the top of the shaft and peered into the docking bay. Elias pointed toward a small landing craft tucked behind cargo containers. The ship was sleek, built for speed and stealth, but it had minimal weaponry. They would have to rely on stealth and Liara's abilities if they wanted to escape unscathed. "We need to time this carefully," Elias whispered. "The patrols rotate every 7 minutes. We have a small window to reach the ship and take off." Liara nodded, feeling the tension tighten in her chest. She had faced impossible situations before, but this was different. This was a chance at freedom, and freedom had never been this close. The patrols passed below them, their footsteps echoing in the metal chamber. Liara held her breath, focusing on the faint hum of the energy systems. She could feel the vibrations of the ship beneath them, her senses attuned to every detail. "Now," Elias said, moving quickly. They dropped from the shadows, landing silently behind the ship. Liara's abilities allowed her to disable a few sensors along the landing bay floor, giving them a clear path. She felt a rush of exhilaration. Years of imprisonment had honed her skills, and now they were paying off. Inside the cockpit, Elias powered up the ship. The engines hummed, and the air inside filled with a faint warmth. Liara watched the controls, fascinated. Humans had built many things she didn't understand, yet Elias handled the ship with confidence and precision. "Hold on," he said, fastening his harness. "We're going to have to move quickly." The doors slid open, and they slipped out into the docking bay corridor. Patrols were returning, and alarms blared. Liara felt a surge of energy, instinctively using her powers to create a brief electromagnetic pulse. Lights flickered, sensors glitched, and the patrols hesitated, unsure of what had just happened. "Go!" Elias shouted. They ran, ducking behind cargo containers and weaving through the shadows. Liara felt a sense of exhilaration she hadn't known in years. Her abilities, once a source of fear and imprisonment, were now a tool for freedom. The patrols regained their composure, but Liara and Elias were already at the ship. They climbed inside, and Elias sealed the doors. He fired the engines, and the craft lifted off, narrowly avoiding detection. As the prison receded below them, Liara allowed herself a deep breath. The stars stretched out ahead, vast and open, a universe full of possibilities. She turned to Elias, her eyes meeting his. "Thank you," she said simply. Elias smiled. "We're not done yet," he said. "This is just the beginning." Liara nodded, feeling a mix of hope and determination. She had been caged and forgotten, left to fade into nothing. But now, with Elias by her side, she felt a spark of life return. The universe was wide and dangerous, but it was also full of opportunities. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere safe," Elias replied. "Somewhere we can plan our next move. You're not the only one they've taken, and if we want to help the others, we'll need to be careful." Liara felt a chill at his words, but also a spark of purpose. She had spent so long surviving for herself. Now survival meant more than just escaping. It meant fighting for others, standing against those who had imprisoned and exploited them. The ship moved swiftly through the asteroid fields, stars streaking past as they navigated through tight corridors of rock and debris. Elias handled the controls expertly, avoiding automated defenses and scanners. Liara's senses remained alert, ready to intervene if needed. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the hum of the engines and the occasional flicker of alerts on the control panel. Liara watched the stars outside, feeling both exhilaration and fear. The universe was vast, and their journey had only just begun. Finally, Elias brought the ship to a stop near a hidden nebula, its thick clouds masking their presence. "This should keep us hidden for now," he said, leaning back in his seat. "We can rest, plan, and decide what to do next." Liara relaxed slightly, allowing herself to sit. She felt exhaustion weighing on her body, but also a strange sense of excitement. Freedom was not just a word, it was a reality she could touch, feel, and act upon. "You saved me," she said quietly. Elias shook his head. "No, you saved yourself, I just gave you a chance." Liara considered his words. He was right. She had used her abilities, her knowledge, her patience, and her strength. Without her, this escape would have been impossible. Yet without him, it also would have failed. Together, they were stronger, each complementing the other. As they rested, Liara felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. The kind of hope that could ignite action, fuel courage, and create change. The universe was vast, full of dangers, but also full of possibilities. And for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to embrace them. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, and Liara knew that their journey was only beginning. The prison was behind them, but the fight was far from over. With a human by her side, she felt a new sense of purpose. They would face whatever came next together. For the first time in years, Liara was not just alive, she was free. The hidden nebula stretched before them, a swirling mass of colors and shadows. Elias guided the small craft carefully through the dense clouds, the ship's sensors flickering as they adjusted to the strange electromagnetic interference. Liara sat beside him, her eyes scanning the glowing mists outside. She could sense the energy currents of the nebula in ways humans could not. The hum of the ship intertwined with the subtle vibrations of the gas and dust, and she realized that her powers could help them navigate safely. "Hold on," Elias said, adjusting the controls. "This section is tricky. One wrong move and the ship could get caught in the currents." Liara nodded, concentrating. She extended a subtle pulse of electromagnetic energy into the ship's hull. The sensors responded, stabilizing the readings and allowing them to move more smoothly through the dense clouds. Elias glanced at her, surprise and admiration in his eyes. "You're incredible," he said quietly. "I've never seen anything like this." Liara gave a small smile. "It's natural to my species, but I've never used it like this before, not for escape." The nebula cleared, revealing a cluster of small, uncharted asteroids. Elias slowed the ship, glancing at Liara. "We should land here. It's remote, and it will give us time to plan our next move." Liara agreed, and they carefully touched down on a flat surface among the asteroids. The small ship settled into the shadows, almost invisible against the dark rock. For the first time in days, Liara felt a moment of relief. They were safe for now, but the peace was short-lived. As they explored the asteroid's surface, Liara detected faint energy signatures nearby. They were weak but distinct, other life forms, alien and human, who were trapped or hiding. Her heart sank as she realized what this meant. The corporation had not only captured her, they had enslaved or imprisoned others, using them for experiments and labor across the sector. Elias, she said softly, there are others, many others, they're trapped like I was. Elias frowned, his jaw tightening. Do you know where? Liara shook her head. Not exactly, but the energy signatures, I can feel them. They're scattered, isolated. Some may have been here for years. Elias looked out at the cluster of asteroids, the weight of the revelation settling on him. Then we have work to do, he said. We can't just escape, we have to help them. Liara nodded, a mixture of fear and determination in her eyes. Helping others would be dangerous, but it felt like the right thing to do. She had survived alone for so long, but now she understood the power of cooperation, of standing together against a common enemy. They spent hours examining the area, mapping the energy signatures and identifying safe paths between the asteroids. Liara's powers allowed them to detect hidden sensors and energy fields, while Elias used his knowledge of human technology to disable traps and plan routes. Together, they formed an effective team, each complementing the other's skills. As night, or what passed for night in this region of space, fell, they discovered an abandoned outpost on one of the larger asteroids. The structure was small and damaged, but it provided shelter and supplies. Elias guided the ship into a hidden docking bay, and they entered the outpost carefully. Inside, they found evidence of the corporation's experiments. Empty cells, discarded equipment, and data pads that recorded the movements and conditions of the captives. Liara felt a pang of sorrow and anger. Each entry told the story of another being who had suffered, just as she had. These people, these aliens, she said quietly, running her fingers over a data pad, they've been trapped and experimented on for years. Some may not even be alive anymore. Elias nodded grimly. We need to find a way to help them. And we need to stop the corporation from doing this again. Liara's eyes hardened. I won't let them continue. I survived once. Others should have a chance too. Elias placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. And you won't be alone this time. We'll do this together. The following days were spent exploring the asteroid cluster, gathering supplies, and planning their next move. Liara's abilities proved invaluable. She could sense hidden power conduits, manipulate energy fields, and even disable small automated drones that patrolled the area. Elias focused on strategy, using his experience as a pilot and tactician to plan safe routes and coordinate movements. One evening, as they rested in the outpost, Liara asked a question that had been on her mind since their escape. Why did you come for me? Why risk everything? Elias looked at her, his eyes steady. Because no one deserves to be caged like you were, because what they're doing, it's wrong. Someone has to stop it, and because I knew that if I didn't, no one else would. Liara was silent for a moment, considering his words. Humans often acted out of self-interest, but Elias' courage and empathy were different. He had risked his life for her, not for profit, not for reward, but because it was the right thing to do. For the first time, she understood that not all humans were like the ones who had destroyed her world. Their planning was interrupted by an unexpected event. A small reconnaissance drone, sleek and fast, appeared on the sensors. It was approaching their location, likely sent by the corporation to investigate unusual activity in the sector. We need to act fast, Elias said, moving to the control panel. If that drone finds us, it will call reinforcements, and they'll come in force. Liara focused, extending her electromagnetic abilities outward. The drone's sensors flickered, and its flight path wavered. Elias seized the opportunity, sending a signal to the ship's cloaking device. The craft disappeared from the drone's view, hidden among the rocks and shadows. Good work, Elias said, glancing at Liara. That should buy us some time. Liara nodded, feeling a surge of pride. She had spent years feeling powerless, trapped, and forgotten. Now she had the chance to make a difference, not just for herself, but for others. The next day, they began moving cautiously between asteroids, mapping the locations of the energy signatures that Liara had detected. Each signature represented a being in need, and each step forward was a step toward justice. During their exploration, they discovered a hidden facility, partially buried in an asteroid's surface. The entrance was heavily shielded, but Liara's abilities allowed them to sense weak points in the energy field. Elias examined the controls, using his technical skills to unlock the entrance without triggering alarms. Inside, they found rows of containment cells, some occupied, some empty. Liara's heart sank as she realized the extent of the corporation's cruelty. Aliens of many species were imprisoned, their conditions harsh and unforgiving. Some were weak, malnourished, or injured. Others sat in silence, their eyes empty from years of confinement. Liara moved among them, sending pulses of energy to restore warmth and light in the cells. The aliens stirred, some weakly lifting their heads to see her. Elias worked to open the cell doors, careful to avoid triggering the security systems. "We're here to help," Liara said softly. "You're not alone anymore." The prisoners looked at her with a mix of disbelief and hope. For many, freedom had been a distant dream. For Liara, it had been a struggle for survival. Now together, they could reclaim it. As they freed the aliens, Elias and Liara coordinated their escape. They moved quickly but carefully, guiding the prisoners to the small ship hidden among the asteroids. Liara used her powers to disable sensors and override security locks, while Elias provided tactical guidance. The final obstacle was a large energy barrier protecting the exit. Liara focused, channeling her energy into the system. The barrier flickered, then dissolved, clearing the way. The group hurried to the ship, climbing aboard with a mixture of relief and excitement. Elias fired the engines, lifting the craft into space. The prisoners watched in awe as the stars stretched around them, a vast universe full of possibilities. Liara felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had survived, but survival was no longer enough. Now she had a purpose, to help others to fight back and to ensure that no one else would suffer as she had. As they traveled through the nebula, Elias glanced at Liara. "This is only the beginning," he said. "The corporation will come after us, but we've shown them that we're not powerless. Together, we can make a difference." Liara nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She had been caged and forgotten, left to fade into the shadows of the universe. Now she was free, and she had the power to help others achieve freedom too. The ship moved silently through the colorful clouds of the nebula, carrying Liara, Elias, and the freed aliens toward an uncertain future. But for the first time, Liara felt hope, courage, and determination. They had escaped the prison, uncovered the corporation's experiments, and discovered that they were not alone in the fight. The journey ahead would be dangerous, full of challenges and threats. But Liara no longer feared the unknown. With Elias at her side and the other freed beings counting on her, she knew they could face whatever lay ahead. And in that moment, as the stars stretched endlessly before them, Liara realized that freedom was not just an escape, it was a mission. They were no longer victims, they were survivors, they were warriors. And the universe had better be ready. The small ship glided silently through the vast darkness of space. Stars streaked past them as Liara, Elias, and the freed aliens moved further away from the asteroid cluster. The nebula's swirling colors faded behind them, replaced by the endless black of the human frontier. For a moment, it seemed as if they were alone in the universe, free from the eyes of the corporation that had hunted them so relentlessly. But freedom, Liara realized, was only temporary. The corporation would not forget her, nor the other aliens who had been imprisoned. They were clever, powerful, and ruthless, and if they discovered the escape, they would come after them with everything they had. "Elias," Liara said quietly, her eyes scanning the readouts on the ship's console. "They will come, we need to prepare." Elias nodded, his jaw tight. "I know, that's why we need to stay ahead of them. We can't fight them directly, not yet. But we can use speed, stealth, and your abilities to survive." Liara felt a familiar hum of power stir within her. Her electromagnetic skills had already saved them more times than she could count. She could sense the subtle currents of energy around the ship, detect hidden sensors, and manipulate small systems remotely. It was no longer a tool for escape alone. It was a weapon, a shield, and a guide. Hours passed in tense silence as they navigated the star lanes. The freed aliens were quiet, still adjusting to their new reality. Some had never left the corporate facilities, never seen the stars, or felt the sensation of movement through space. Liara could feel their fear and awe, and she knew that this journey would test not only their bodies but their minds as well. Suddenly, the ship's sensors picked up a faint signal, a fleet of corporate pursuit ships moving toward them at high speed. Elias swore under his breath, gripping the controls tightly. "They found us," he said grimly. "They'll be here soon." Liara felt a surge of determination. Then we must be ready. She extended a controlled pulse of electromagnetic energy toward the sensors. The readings flickered and became erratic, confusing the incoming fleet. It will slow them down, but not for long, she warned. Elias adjusted their trajectory, weaving the ship through a dense asteroid belt. The corporate ships followed, their sleek forms glinting in the starlight. Missiles streaked past, and laser beams cut through space, narrowly missing their craft. The small ship shuddered under the strain, but Liara's powers stabilized the systems, keeping the engines from overheating and the shields from failing. "Hold on!" Elias shouted as another volley of lasers passed. The ship veered sharply, dodging another attack. Liara focused, sending a precise pulse at the corporate targeting systems. The lasers wavered and missed their mark. Elias grinned briefly. "Good work, keep it up." The freed aliens watched in awe as Liara manipulated the energy around them, guiding the ship like a conductor leading an orchestra. They realized that this alien woman, once caged and forgotten, was now their protector, their guide, and their hope. As they moved deeper into the asteroid field, Elias made a sudden decision. "We're going to have to split up. I can lure a few of them away while you get the rest to safety." Liara hesitated. "You're not going to be alone." Elias shook his head. "It's the only way. I trust you. And you can trust me to handle the rest." With a nod, Liara guided the ship and the freed aliens into a narrow corridor of space between two massive asteroids. The path was treacherous, but her powers allowed them to navigate without triggering the corporation's sensors. Behind them, Elia's craft engaged the pursuers directly, drawing their attention with daring maneuvers and feints. The chase was intense. Elias twisted and turned through the asteroid field, missiles streaking past him, lasers cutting through the void. Yet he remained calm, his focus sharp. He knew the stakes. If he failed, Liara and the others would be captured. If he succeeded, they had a chance at true freedom. Meanwhile, Liara led the others safely through the dense rocks. She could sense the subtle shifts in energy, detecting hidden fields and traps left by the corporation. Each obstacle was a test of her skill and concentration, but she remained steadfast. Every alien aboard the ship depended on her. Finally, after what felt like hours, Liara guided the ship to a hidden pocket of space, a nebula with thick clouds that would mask their presence. The freed aliens exhaled in relief, their fear momentarily replaced by awe. "They're not following us here," Liara said, scanning the sensors. "At least not yet." The aliens looked at her with gratitude. One of them, a small creature with translucent skin, spoke softly. "You saved us. We never thought freedom was possible." Liara felt a wave of emotion. She had been alone for so long, but now she realized that freedom was not just for herself, it was for all of them. "Freedom is possible," she said quietly, "but we must be strong, and we must work together." Elias joined them soon after, piloting his ship back into the hidden nebula. He was battered but unharmed. "They didn't follow me all the way," he said, breathing heavily. "We're safe for now." Liara smiled faintly. "Thanks to both of us." Elias returned the smile. "We're a team, always have been, even if we just met." They spent the next day resting and repairing the ships. Liara helped the freed aliens adjust, showing them simple ways to use the energy around them for minor repairs or self-protection. She could feel their growing confidence, and it strengthened her resolve. But the corporation would not give up. Liara could sense the faint traces of energy being tracked across space. Corporate fleets were reorganizing, planning their next move. She and Elias needed a strategy, not just for survival, but for the protection of all those they had freed. "We need allies," Elias said as they studied the star maps. "There are neutral colonies, hidden stations, some humans, some aliens. They could help us fight back." Liara nodded. "And we need to prepare. If they come after us again, we cannot run forever." The next phase of their journey began with careful planning. Elias plotted a course toward a secret coalition outpost, known to harbor humans and aliens who resisted the corporation's tyranny. Liara focused her energy, enhancing the ship's systems and sensors for stealth. They would need every advantage. During the journey, Elias taught the freed aliens basic piloting and defensive maneuvers. Liara guided them in understanding the subtle currents of energy in space, helping them sense dangers before they became threats. Together, they transformed from survivors into a small, capable crew. Days passed, and the nebula gave way to open space. The corporation's pursuit remained faint but ever present. Liara could feel it. a distant tension that hinted at the storm to come. Suddenly, a massive fleet appeared on the sensors, corporate ships, dozens in number, moving swiftly toward their location. Elias swore under his breath, his hands flying across the controls. "They found us," he said. "We can't outrun them all. We'll have to fight." Liara's eyes hardened. She had been caged, forgotten, and abandoned, but she was no longer powerless. She extended her energy outward, feeling the hum of the ship and the subtle currents around the fleet. With precise control, she disrupted their sensors, causing confusion and hesitation. Elias seized the opportunity, maneuvering the ship with daring precision. Lasers and missiles streaked past them, but the small crew remained focused. Liara guided the ship through narrow gaps, through asteroid fields, and even into the edge of a nearby nebula, masking their movements. The battle was intense, a combination of human ingenuity and alien skill. Liara's powers stabilized the ship systems, disrupted the fleet's targeting, and created openings for evasive maneuvers. Elias used every trick he knew, weaving through attacks and drawing fire away from the others. After hours of tense action, they managed to break contact with the fleet, retreating into the safety of the nebula. The freed aliens cheered, exhausted but alive. Liara allowed herself a brief moment of relief. Elias leaned back, breathing heavily. "We did it," he said. Liara nodded. "For now, but they will come again, and next time they will be stronger." Elias glanced at her, a mix of admiration and determination in his eyes. "Then we will be ready together." Liara felt a surge of purpose. She had survived alone for years, but now she was part of something greater. She had allies, friends, and a mission. The stars stretched endlessly before them, full of danger, yes, but also full of hope. As they moved deeper into the nebula, Liara realized that the journey was far from over. They had escaped the prison, freed others, and faced the corporation's fleet, but the universe held even greater challenges. Yet she felt no fear. With Elias and the freed aliens by her side, she knew they could face whatever came next. For the first time in years, Liara felt truly alive, not just surviving but thriving, fighting for justice, freedom, and a chance to make the universe a better place. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, and Liara knew that their fight had only just begun. They were no longer victims, they were warriors. And the universe was about to see the strength of those who refused to be caged. The hidden coalition outpost lay nestled on a small, rocky moon orbiting a distant planet. Its structures were a mixture of human and alien designs, blending technology with natural materials. Lights flickered along the edges of the buildings, and small spacecraft moved silently through the air. Liara watched from the cockpit of their small ship, her heart beating with anticipation. "This is it," Elias said quietly. "We'll be safe here at least for now. And we can get help to free others." Liara nodded, her eyes scanning the outpost. For the first time in years, she felt the stirrings of true hope. The coalition was composed of humans and aliens working together, united against the corporation that had caged her and so many others. Here, she would not be forgotten. The ship touched down in a concealed landing area. Coalition guards approached, cautious but not hostile. Elias stepped forward first, explaining their situation, while Liara remained behind, observing the newcomers. She could sense their energy, their intentions, and recognized the signs of honesty and trustworthiness. One of the coalition leaders, a tall human woman with sharp eyes and a commanding presence, approached Liara. "You must be Liara," she said. "We've heard about you, and we've been waiting for someone to lead the others." Liara felt a flicker of surprise. "Lead?" she asked. "Yes," the woman replied. "You survived the prison. You understand their methods, their weaknesses. You can help us plan rescue missions, help others escape, and guide our defense strategies." Liara considered this. For so long, she had only focused on survival. But now she realized that she could use her strength, intelligence, and abilities to protect others. "I will do it," she said firmly. "I will help." Elias stepped beside her, smiling quietly. "I knew you would," he said, "and I'll be with you every step of the way." The coalition welcomed them, providing supplies, medical care, and advanced technology. The freed aliens began to recover, some weak and injured, others fearful but eager to learn. Liara moved among them, offering guidance, comfort, and reassurance. She used her abilities carefully, helping to stabilize the outpost systems and improve their defenses. Over the next several days, the coalition leaders convened to discuss the corporation's movements. Intelligence reports suggested that the organization had spread its operations across several sectors, enslaving or experimenting on countless alien species. Liara listened carefully, her mind racing. Each report was a reminder of the scale of the challenge ahead, but also of the importance of what they were doing. "We cannot confront them directly," one leader said. "Not yet, but we can strike strategically, rescue those we can, and weaken their operations." Liara nodded. "We can also teach the freed aliens to protect themselves, to use their abilities wisely. Together, we can be stronger than they expect." Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've already proven that," he said. "You led them out of the prison. You saved lives. Now we can save even more." Liara felt a sense of pride and responsibility. She had been caged and forgotten, left to fade into nothing. But now she had purpose, allies, and a mission. The universe was vast and dangerous, but she was no longer powerless. The coalition quickly set to work, coordinating teams for rescue missions and strategic strikes. Liara worked closely with Elias, teaching him and others to recognize energy patterns, detect hidden traps, and use their surroundings to their advantage. She also trained the freed aliens, helping them regain confidence, control, and courage. One evening, Liara stood on the outpost's observation deck, gazing at the stars. Elias joined her, and they watched the distant fleets of the corporation moving silently across space. "They're still out there," Liara said softly. "But we're ready. We're not alone anymore." Elias nodded. "And we never will be. This is bigger than you or me. It's about everyone who has suffered under them and everyone we can help." Liara smiled faintly, feeling a warmth she hadn't experienced in years. "It feels right," she said, "to fight for something bigger, to protect others, to be remembered, not forgotten." Elias glanced at her. "You've already inspired a lot of people, Liara. Humans and aliens alike. That's why they will follow you, and that's why we'll succeed." The next mission came quickly. Intelligence suggested that a small outpost in a nearby sector was holding several alien prisoners. Liara led the team, using her abilities to map the security systems and detect weak points. Elias piloted their transport, ready to engage or evade corporate forces if necessary. As they approached the outpost, Liara felt the familiar surge of determination. She had been caged, betrayed, and abandoned, but now she had allies, and together they were strong. She guided the team through the shadows, disabling security systems and creating safe paths for the freed aliens. When the team reached the prisoners, Liara felt a mixture of relief and sorrow. Many were weak, frightened, and unsure if freedom was even possible. But when Liara extended her hand and offered reassurance, hope sparked in their eyes. "You are not alone," she said softly. "We are here. We will take you home." The rescue went smoothly, thanks to Liara's guidance and Elia's skillful piloting. The prisoners were evacuated safely, and the team returned to the coalition outpost without detection. Each successful mission strengthened their confidence and demonstrated that the corporation could be challenged. Back at the outpost, Liara worked tirelessly. She analyzed energy patterns, coordinated future missions, and trained new recruits. The freed aliens began to recover physically and emotionally, forming bonds with humans and each other. Together, they built a small community based on trust, respect, and cooperation. Elias watched her quietly one evening as she oversaw a training exercise. "You've changed everything," he said. Liara looked at him, tired but satisfied. "No," she replied. "We've changed everything. Humans and aliens together, that's the real power." Elias smiled. "I know, but it started with you." Liara allowed herself a moment of reflection. For so long, she had been alone, abandoned, and forgotten. Now she was a leader, a guide, and a symbol of hope. The universe had taken much from her, but it had also given her a chance to create something better. As days turned into weeks, the coalition grew stronger. More humans and aliens joined their cause, inspired by the stories of Liara's escape and courage. Each new member brought skills, knowledge, and determination. The small outpost became a hub of resistance, a beacon for those seeking freedom. Liara continued to train, teach, and lead. Elias remained at her side, their partnership a model of cooperation and trust. Together, they devised strategies, planned missions, and prepared for the inevitable confrontation with the corporation's forces. One quiet night, Liara stood on the observation deck again, gazing at the stars. She thought of her home world, lost to the corporation's greed, and of the friends and family she had once known. She felt sorrow for the past, but also hope for the future. You've come a long way, Elias said softly, joining her. Liara nodded. I've been caged and forgotten, but not anymore. Now I have a purpose, and I will not fail. Elias smiled. And you won't. We'll make sure of it together. Liara felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She had survived the impossible, escaped the unthinkable, and now stood ready to fight for those who could not. Her journey had begun in darkness, but it had led to light, purpose, and hope. The Coalition's outpost was small, but it was strong. The humans and aliens who joined them were united by a common goal: freedom, justice, and the belief that no one should be forgotten or caged. Liara realized that this was only the beginning. There were more prisoners to free, more battles to fight, and more lives to protect. But she was ready. She was no longer alone. She had allies, friends, and a mission. The universe was vast, dangerous, and full of challenges, but together they could face anything. For the first time in years, Liara felt truly alive. She had been caged and forgotten, but now she was remembered, respected, and needed. Her strength, courage, and determination had inspired others, and together they were building a future worth fighting for. The stars stretched endlessly above, full of possibilities. Liara knew that their journey was far from over, but she no longer feared the unknown. With Elias by her side, the freed aliens counting on her, and the Coalition growing stronger every day, she knew that they could overcome any obstacle. And as she looked out at the vast expanse of space, Liara felt a profound truth. Freedom was not just a dream, it was a mission. A mission she would see through no matter the cost. The corporation may have tried to cage her, to erase her existence, and to make her forgotten. But Liara was no longer a prisoner. She was a leader, a warrior, a symbol of hope for the countless lives the corporation sought to control, and the universe had better be ready.